I was, and still am, a huge conspiracy guy. I literally ran out of new tin hat topics to research, and I still wouldn't look at this one without embarrassment. But every time I glanced at it, there was something unresolved.
Well, hi everyone, and greetings from Northern Michigan. This is Bob the Science Guy. Today we're going to have a look at Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues Part 7. This is a particularly interesting one for me because it has to do with flight planning. This is of interest to me because I actually am a pilot. I'm formally trained in navigation and GPS. I also use and understand flight planning software, and I'll walk you through that. So let's cue up the music and get started.
Flat Earth Clues Part 7, The Long Haul. This is part of a series of clues that can help you get your head around both the design of the flat Earth system we live in and who has been involved in the deception to hide it from you. This clue looks into a topic I only glanced at in the original guide, which is the Southern Hemisphere, or in the Flat Earth model, the land masses closest to the outer ring. I like to give credit where credit is due, and the long haul title was given to me by a fellow flat earther who did some of the same research I did. The summary of the video is this. If you are looking to show someone how to view the flat earth from a practical point of view, this is the example I would use. I'm going to show you how strange the world looks using just a few websites, some simple math, a couple minutes, and your brain. You don't have to write anything down, unless you want to, of course. I'll give you everything you need on screen and break down one of the examples as well. I'll also link the sites in the description for reference.
And I will do the same. I was going to use the official map of the Cat Earth Society, which is shown here, but it's not really a good map for navigation. So there are a couple of things that I would like to point out that are strange on the world. The longest line of latitude is the equator, 0 latitude. Now, above and below this, we have the Tropic of Cancer and we have the Tropic of Capricorn. On the flat Earth map, the Gleason projection, one is much longer than the other. However, on the actual Earth, both lines of latitude are exactly the same length, and both are shorter than the equator. This is exactly what you would expect on a sphere. I'll let you figure out how that works out on a Gleason map.
First, here are some websites that help you calculate distance. The GPS on your phone already does this, and you may have an app as well, but here are some dedicated examples. Timeanddate.com, tripit.com, distancefrom2.net, worldatlas.com, freemaptools.com, and travelmath.com. If your favorite isn't listed here, like Google Maps, then use whatever is most familiar to you.
Now, another point that is very telling is every one of those map and distance references that Mark gave you is based on the World Geodetic System 1984. Which is a satellite-based mapping system using the World Coordinate System that is accurate to within 2 centimeters on the surface of the Earth. So by using that system, Mark Sargent either is admitting he understands that the Earth is a sphere and that there are satellites in space, or he simply doesn't understand what he's talking about and didn't realize what he was doing. Now, the flight planning software that I'm going to be using is available to any of you. It's called skyvector.com, and it is possible on this software to plot a route between any 2 airports in the world. While this particular software is not certified for in-flight use, it does compare favorably to my ForeFlight application, which is certified for in-flight use and navigation. Unlike Mark, I'm not going to rely on commercial aviation routes. I'm going to be calculating direct flight routes and distances between 2 points or 3 points in some cases. Now, in addition to being able to accurately calculate distances between 2 points, if I plot a triangular course, I can accurately calculate each angle of that triangle. That will become important later.
Now we are going to look at two specific groups of cities. The first group is going to be from the area around Australia, including New Zealand. We'll call this Group 1. Group 1 includes Melbourne, Australia, Sydney, Australia, Perth, Australia, Auckland, New Zealand, Christchurch, New Zealand, and Hamilton, New Zealand. The second group is going to be some cities in South America, all in the Southern Hemisphere. I mention this because if you go high enough, you will run into a few cities that won't work. Group 2 includes Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Brasilia, Brazil, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Lima, Peru, and Santiago, Chile. Again, there is a link in the description with many other airports. Now, these two groups are interchangeable, as you would imagine, so you can start or end with either Group 1 or 2. The results will be the same, and just to make it interesting, I'll use a slightly different example which a fellow flat earther did the legwork on and show you that even these two groups aren't exclusive. So you take anything from Group 1 and anything from Group 2 and you get some distances ranging from 6 to 8,000 miles roughly. That's all I want you to do here is get that part in your head, noticing that the route is bent because they have to account for the curvature of the Earth.
Now we're going to take a short break from Mark's story to actually learn something here. On a sphere and only on a sphere, the shortest distance between 2 points in any direction is what is called a great circle course. The mere fact that the shortest distance between any 2 points on Earth is a great circle course confirms that the Earth is a sphere. The easiest way to determine the great circle route between any 2 points is to take a piece of string and stretch it between 2 points on a globe. The course of that string is the great circle course. If you try this between, say, Taipei, Taiwan, and San Francisco, California, you will see that that string passes over the North Pacific and close to Alaska. This explains why aircraft experiencing emergencies en route from Asia to the United States will many times divert to Anchorage, Alaska. Now you're welcome to go into the spherical math of this great circle course, but there's something important here for you to see. Well, Mark has already noted that these are curved paths. The radius of that curve can be important because in order to get the final distance on that course, you need to know the radius of the Earth. Conversely, if you already know the final distance of the path, you can calculate the radius of the Earth. That's a pretty neat trick, isn't it?
All these directions are what you would expect, a straight shot over the South Pacific Ocean. Now, just to prove it's not an exclusive route, instead of starting in, say, Rio and landing in Auckland, I'll start what should be the opposite side, in Cape Town, South Africa, which is roughly the same distance on a globe Earth coming in at 7,300 miles. Notice on the map it's still a straight shot through the Indian Ocean and not crossing any countries, an easy route.
Now, in a shameless plug, I'd like to add that my friend Greater Sapien recently took a flight from Sydney, Australia to Cape Town, South Africa by this very route.
I try to book my flight. For this example, we use travel math, but you can use whatever is easiest in your country, like Priceline, Expedia, Travelocity. It will make no difference because they're all tied to the same system. And this is when everything goes wrong.
You know, it used to be I'd fly from Detroit, Michigan to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina nonstop. It was a very pleasant and relatively short flight. Then all of a sudden the airline changed its schedule and I found that I had to leave Detroit and then I had to either go to Boston or New York and then connect and go on to Myrtle Beach. Airlines determine their flight routes not necessarily on the shortest distance, but on passenger demand, on refueling and repair facilities, and on the hub system that we use. This is why if I want to find the shortest flight distance between any 2 points, I actually go to flight planning software and calculate the shortest flight between 2 points. I don't go to a travel site and try and figure out how to get there based on the convenience of the airlines. Given the fact the question at hand is flight distance rather than commercial air route, I'm a little confused as to why Mark went to a travel site to do this instead of, say, a flight planning site. I mean, shoot, if he's got a question about flight planning, have him give me a call. I'll work the flight plan out for him and send it to him. Not a problem. I guess that's the difference between using somebody that actually knows something about navigation versus somebody that's trying to promote a narrative of a fantasy world.
So the first leg, the airlines don't send me due east, but instead shoot me 4,700 miles almost due north to Dubai. Okay, maybe we're just picking up people. Seems a bit excessive, but I'll go with it. I'm probably comfortable in my seat drinking vodka tonics anyway. And from Dubai, it should be a straight shot home to Auckland, right? No. Now they send me southeast to Melbourne, a mere 7,300 miles. And then finally a third leg from Melbourne to Auckland coming in at around 1,600 miles. I'm rounding up or down to make the math easier. Regardless, the total miles for this flight is almost double what should be expected, coming in at 13,600 miles. In addition, the trip took me 37 hours. How long should it have taken? Well, in a 777, about 12. The first part of the clue is the utter lack of non-stop flights from anywhere in this hemisphere, which is why I gave you multiple cities in each group. And here's the plot hole for you. Flying from international cities like Sydney, Rio, Santiago, or anywhere else close by, you can't get a single non-stop flight, no matter how much money you pay.
Except, of course, there's a couple right there. That took me all of 5 minutes to find on Qantas Airlines. It's a non-stop from Sydney, Australia to Cape Town, South Africa, and that happens to be the one that Greater Sapien took. There's actually a couple of dates that you can choose from. Simply going to the Qantas website brings them right up.
Some of these connections took the trip over 50 hours to complete. Go ahead, try it yourself. You may find one non-stop. But even then, the strangeness doesn't end there, because the speed is wrong. For reference, I included an optimum cruising speed guide from a commercial pilots forum that lists all the international aircraft used in these routes. A 777, the current state-of-the-art flagship plane, designed for maximum fuel efficiency, has a cruising speed of 640 miles an hour. 7,400 miles comes in at around 12 hours. Try to find this route. It doesn't exist.
Except, of course, there it is. As you see, the correct cruising speed of a Boeing 777 is 482 knots per hour. So the arrival time is pretty much exactly as is on the ticket from a couple of frames ago. Between 12 and 13 hours. Perfectly normal. Right on a sphere.
It can't. The closest I came was a one-connection flight with a 3-hour layover. The total flight time was 20 hours. 20 take away 3 is 17, not 12.
Well, I guess that's the difference between knowing what you're doing and kind of sucking as a travel agent, Mark. Don't give up your day job.
But this is all just numbers, right? It is until you pull up the flat Earth map and look at the farthest 2 points, which just coincidentally are anywhere in Australia and most of South America. Or my example of Lower Africa, which you can see isn't west at all.
Well, Mark, cool story, bro, but here's one problem that you have. Don't you think people might notice that they're flying over ocean versus flying over land? Flights between your Group 1 and Group 2 and flights between Australia and Africa are over the ocean. They're not over land. This isn't in question. If you were even remotely correct, you'd be flying over the North Pole. You're not.
It's a shell game, and a very good one at that. Keep people guessing with multiple connections and layovers, jumping from city to city. People just sit in their seats, trying to sleep through it. And then it hits you. Well, the pilots would know, right? They fly all day, every day. Certainly, they would have figured it out by now. Some of them.
Yes, we have. Pilots like me, like Wolfie 6020, we know. The Earth is a sphere. We know how to navigate. We keep telling you this, but you keep sputtering off on this same AE going over the North Pole to get to Africa from Australia nonsense. Why don't, instead of saying, well, we know, why don't you admit the fact that we do know and we are telling you, you just aren't listening? Seriously, Mark, this is a problem. It's called an argument from ignorance. You don't know the answer, yet you have a very strong opinion on what the answer must be. It doesn't work that way. Next time, ask somebody that actually knows something about the subject. Maybe you'll learn something. But the truth of the matter is, Mark, you do know this, don't you? You're just promoting this because it gets you subscribers, and it makes you feel important to a lot of people who don't know this. So I don't think that even if we do show you every bit of evidence that shows that this is correct, that you'll admit it because it'll knock out your YouTube paycheck. I hate to tell you this, Chief, but intellectually that's dishonest. And you really shouldn't do that to your subscribers. Now, just to show that this is true, it didn't take me very long at all to find this direct flight. They're all over the place. You had to actually avoid them to find these connecting flights with long layovers to try and make the point that you're trying to make with this video. That's just wrong, Mark.
Some of them would get suspicious, sure. Any decent navigator will be able to work out the speed, fuel consumption, and odd connections. But imagine what they would have to get their head around. First, they would have to ignore the world GPS system that has been leading them to their destinations without error. If you want some interesting side reading, check out the link on the history of the GPS. And I quote, "Developed in 1973 to overcome the limitations of previous navigation systems, integrating ideas from several predecessors, including a number of classified engineering design studies from the 1960s. Oh, and by the way, was created by the Department of Defense, the same people that closed off Antarctica."
Mark, it's called progress. We started off with towing a rope behind a ship to try and get some sense of direction. Then we developed sextants and celestial navigation. Then we went to radio navigation with something called LORAN. Finally, we developed the global positioning system. Now, yes, this was a military project because, quite frankly, the military wants to know where they are and where the bad guys are. So it's very good to be able to target those people, so you need to know exactly where they are to reach out and touch them. And while I have you on the phone here, let's just clear up two other things. One, you made a mention that the military closed off Antarctica. Well, no, they didn't. You can go there. I've shown that in several videos. It's not a secret. There are thousands of people that live in Antarctica right now. And second of all, since your next point is going to be changing GPS, yes, originally when released to the public, GPS was degraded a little bit. You couldn't find your position within about 60 to 80 feet. And then in 1995, Clinton decided to say, hey, let's just pull that off. And overnight, you could now find your position within 36 inches. Actually, probably even closer than that. That's not a big mystery or a secret. It was announced.
GPS went fully live in 1995. So if you were a pilot before then, you might have been able to pick up a breadcrumb trail. After that, very difficult. Plus, let's say you did figure out that something was off. Who exactly would you tell? The FAA? You would be looking around and wondering why you were the only one to see it. And then what? You make the leap of faith and see that the entire map system is wrong? Never gonna happen.
But the problem, Mark, is that it isn't wrong. It's accurate within 2 centimeters anywhere in the world. But really, enough of you. I'm going to give you all a little bit of homework to do. I want you to go to SkyVector, and I want you to plot me a course between Los Angeles International, LAX, and then I want you to go to JFK in New York, which is JFK, and then I want you to go to Ted Stevens Airport up in Anchorage, Alaska, PANC, and then take that back down to LAX. Then I want you to click the little button that says Navlog, and that'll give you your true heading between each of those 3 points. Now, remember, when you come into an airport, you're going to come in on a certain heading. Say from JFK to Los Angeles, it's going to be about 280 degrees. You need to take off 180 degrees because you're going to go out the other end, and you need to find the angle between those 2 courses. So you've got to go north up to Anchorage, and then you have to take 100 degrees, which is 280 minus 100, and then calculate the angle there. Then I want you to add up all 3 angles. Remember that on a flat surface, a triangle of any angles, the internal angles will add up to 180. If you plot that course out, you will find that the internal angles add up to over 200 degrees. I want y'all to figure out how that works on a flat map. More importantly, tell me how that works out on a flat Earth. The true heading takes into account magnetic deviation, so the internal angles are correct. You can plot them yourself. They add up to more than 180 degrees. That is not possible on a flat surface. The only conclusion you have is that the Earth itself is not flat. This is Bob the Science Guy signing out from Northern Michigan. Thank you for stopping by and having a listen to my rant here. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel.
This rabbit hole's too deep for me. Feel my brain getting real sore.